Hi everyone, my name is Laura Leonard and I am a speech pathologist at the Joshua School, and I'm going to be talking to you today about some ways that you can best support communication at home by thinking about the functions of your child's behavior. So, like I said, my name is Laura. I'm a speech pathologist at the Joshua School, and this presentation was made in collaboration with Rena Pitlick, another SLP at the Joshua School. So, I'm sure all of you know one or both of us. A quick outline about what we're going to talk about today. We're briefly going to talk about the functions of behavior, go over some communication levels and examples for each of those communication levels. And then we're going to talk about some communication interventions that you can hopefully implement easily at home that target escape, attention, access, and automatic functions, and then how we can increase those expectations for our kids over time. So I am not a BCBA or behavior specialist, but I want to briefly go over what the functions of behavior are. So I'm sure you guys have heard lots about your students or your child's functions of behavior, and mostly the functions of behavior are the reasons why people behave a certain way. These functions apply to all of us, but they're really important to consider for our students and our children with autism because of their challenges with communication and social communication. So when we're thinking about the function, we want to think about what's happening before we see the behavior, what the behavior is, and then the consequence, what's happening afterwards to help figure out the function. The four functions of behavior are first, escape, so things people do to get out of something they don't want to do. Attention, which is things people do to get reactions from others, and these can be both positive and negative. Automatic, and these are things people do to make themselves feel better and they don't really need to involve other people. And then lastly, access, and these are things people do to get what they want. And so as parents of your children, you probably have a pretty good idea about why your child might be doing something and maybe a pretty good idea about what the function of their behavior is. But if you're stuck, a good place to look would be your child's behavior intervention plan, their BIP, or checking in with your behavior specialist or lead teacher. So mostly, all behavior is communication. And so what we want to do is teach better ways to communicate. All right, so I'm going to go through the levels of communication. And this information was taken from the Communication Matrix, which is a free online assessment and toolbox. I gave each level of intentional communication a number to kind of make it easier as we go through them. So level number 1 is considered unconventional communication. And so for unconventional communication, we don't need anything outside of our body. But as we age, these things might be considered socially inappropriate. So some examples are pushing something away you don't want or handing it back, your child leading you by the hand, just making eye contact. And so these are really great beginner communication skills if your child doesn't yet have these skills. It's a really great place to start. Level 2 is conventional communication. And again, these are things that we don't need anything outside of our body to be able to communicate, and they are socially appropriate as we age. So some examples are pointing, joint attention, waving, nodding. These are all things that we do as adults and are considered socially appropriate. So if your child is working on using their talker or using some vocal language but doesn't have skills such as pointing or joint attention, these are great things to work on to help fill in some of those communication gaps. The next level is concrete symbols. And so these are symbols that look like what they are. They look like it, they feel like it, which might include real photos or real objects. In some kids, they don't need this stage, but if your child is struggling to understand the abstract symbols, using real pictures is a really good option that could help them bridge the gap of symbol understanding and use. Level 4 is abstract symbols, and so these are symbols that do not look like what they represent. These include pictures, so either pictures you're printing out from the internet or pictures on your child's talker. It includes manual sign, written words, and spoken words. These are all things that don't look like what they actually mean. And then level 5 is language, and that's when we start putting everything together. So whether your child's putting together signs, spoken words, words on their talker, putting pictures together, that's really when we're starting to see language. So now for the good stuff. I'm going to hopefully give you guys some examples of how to teach communication to replace some of that challenging behavior that's easy for you guys to do at home. So, thinking about the 5 levels of communication that I just talked about, we aren't going to expect our child to go to their talker and say, I don't like what you're doing, if currently they're just hitting you when they don't like what you're doing. As humans, we typically choose the easiest way for us to get our needs met, and so do our kids. So, when you're first thinking about what communication you want to teach, you want to think and choose a way for your child to communicate that is easier or just as easy and as effective for them to get their needs met than engaging in the challenging behavior. So, say your child hits their brother because they want them to go away. The probable function is escape. And so, a communication mode that is easier or just as easy would be maybe to have the brother teach them to lightly push their arm or to kind of guide them out of the room, or maybe they point to the door, or maybe if they're already able to do those things, maybe they go ahead and say go on their talker. Another scenario, your child knocks down everything in the living room when you're in the kitchen making lunch. Potentially they want some attention for you while your attention is somewhere else. And so something that might be just as easy is having a recordable button that just says, look at me, or come here, or something similar to that. The final scenario is that your child sits in front of the refrigerator and screams. You know that they want the string cheese in there, so the probable function is access. And so something that may be just as easy is putting a symbol of eat on the refrigerator door that your child can touch. So now we're going to go through each function of behavior and talk about a few examples of communication modes that you could use to teach your child. So if your child's communicating at a level 1, you might teach them to gently push an item or person away or hand an unwanted item back instead of throwing it. Maybe press a recordable button that says no or I need space. Level 2 could be something like shaking their head no. Level 3 might be a real picture of your child taking a break, or maybe their break area in the house if they have an area where they can go and be alone and use that. Maybe you have a real picture of that area. Level 4 is picture symbols, and this is low tech or high tech, meaning you could print them out or the ones that you're using on your child's talker. Also includes manual sign or spoken words for things such as stop, don't, break, space, go, or no. The list goes on. And then level 5 would be putting the words together. For students who aren't using their voice or talkers fluently, having a recordable button is a quick and efficient way to get their needs met. I buy mine on Amazon. They're not super great, but they work, and that way you're taking out a lot of the effort in your child instead of maybe immediately, throwing things in the living room when they want your attention. Could hit a button that says, or sorry, this one is for escape. So maybe instead of hitting their brother, they could hit their button that says I need space, and brother hopefully leaves the room. At school, we make sure that we have break symbols visible and available for our students to use. And if our student is using or is learning how to ask for a break, we'll only require them to touch the picture and maybe hand it over, and at first not require them to use their voice or their talker, because again, we want that effort to be really low so that it replaces a behavior. And so these are just some examples of a real picture of a student's break area, a symbol for a student who understands some more symbols, and then as the student kind of learns that they can get their needs met by asking for a break, maybe we require that they ask for a break on their talker. Again, this is just another way for your child to protest. The student has a card that's kind of attached to her, and it says, I don't want to. So she always has that ability to be able to protest. And so, kind of getting in front of those challenging behaviors, she's able to use this tool to say, I don't want to do this. And it's attached to her all the time. For kids wanting to potentially escape an environment, we have symbols on a lot of our doors for them to be able to request to leave instead of eloping or running out of their room. When first teaching this skill, we'll typically stand right next to the student and practice using the symbols over and over to show our kids that they're able to request to leave an environment instead of running out, and that when they request appropriately, they are able to access that environment instead of, if they run out, we're probably going to bring them back into the classroom. I'll be uploading another presentation soon about the zones of regulation, but this is just an example of a choice board to help a kid escape a situation when they're feeling frustrated. And so we're doing some work, they're not interested, they're starting to become frustrated, and it's just kind of some choices and reminders of different things that they can do, including asking for a break or asking to do something different, which will allow them to escape the situation. So a big part in helping these new communicative behaviors work is trying your best to not reinforce whatever the challenging behavior was that your child engaged in to try and get what they wanted. So if you're teaching and reinforcing these communication modes that are easier and just as easy as the challenging behavior, and not reinforcing the challenging behavior, your child should be learning that the new communication behavior gets them what they want more effectively. So on the left side here, we have all the things that we would want to reinforce. So pushing something gently away, saying no, using a break card, saying stop, and trying not to reinforce any challenging behavior that we're seeing. The next area we're going to talk about is attention. And so for our level 1 communicators, that might be touching you gently, hitting a button that says mom, just making eye contact. Level 2, you could work on pointing to you or tapping your shoulder or arm. Level 3 could be a real photo of your child receiving their favorite type of attention. Level 4 might be picture symbols, or printed out, or the talker, manual sign or spoken words for things such as look, come, play, excuse me, and then again level 5 is putting those words together. So again, just the idea of using a recordable button to get quick and easy access to some of that attention. And as you teach your child, it could be useful for them to have in another room where they can hear it, where you can hear it, and be able to come to them and give them attention if they need it. Another thing we're working on with a lot of our students at school, and is a great and easy thing for you guys to do at home, is working on tapping a person's shoulder. That's a conventional mode that we as adults use. So you could start by sitting right next to your child and move farther away throughout as they start to understand what the expectation is, so that eventually the thought is that they could come and get you from another room if they needed your attention. And when we start, we kind of, maybe take something preferred and hold it and prompt our students to tap our shoulder or arm, or maybe give them something that they can't open that has something good inside, so they could tap our arm and let us know that they need us. Again, here's just some use of symbols or real pictures for your child to let you know that they want some sort of attention from you. And again, going on to use the student's talker to let you know that they want to hang out with you and play with you once they kind of have those beginner skills mastered. So again, just a reminder, we're going to reinforce tapping your shoulder, making eye contact, pointing to you, using pictures or symbols or words to say things such as look, come, play, and we're going to try to not reinforce any challenging behavior that your child used to try and get your attention. Our next function we're going to talk about is access to tangibles. And so, a level 1 communicator, we might be working on guiding you or leading you by taking your hand. Level 2 are going to work on pointing, using joint attention. Level 3 would be real pictures of objects. Level 4 would be picture symbols, manual sign or spoken words for just the things that your child wants. And then again, level 5, putting all those words together to form language. So pointing to request, this is a big and useful skill for our students to get their needs met and ask for things they can see. So just thinking about how you can work on this systematically at home, if this isn't a skill that your child already has, we might start by putting a preferred item in front of your child and physically prompting them to point to it and then providing them that item. And then maybe next we're placing the preferred item within a few feet from your child in different locations and prompting them to point to it, but it's still pretty close to them. And then again, we're providing that item, and then just do this naturalistically throughout the day. If you can tell your child wants something that's high on a shelf, maybe they're looking at it, maybe their foot's starting to go up on the shelf to climb to get it, prompt them to point to it, and then if possible, give them access to it to show that their pointing works. The next thing we're going to talk about is joint attention. And so this is a big mode of conventional communication that many of our children are missing. And joint attention happens when your child looks back and forth between an object and you. And this could let us know that they want something, and eventually it turns into a social interaction. So if your child is engaging in joint attention, it means that they understand that a person is involved with the item or activity that they want or are engaging in. So again, just kind of a systematic way to work on this with your child at home. You might want to start by placing a preferred item next to your face and wait for your child to look between the object and you, and then provide that item to your child. Next, maybe, and I'm realizing that these all say one, but next, maybe place preferred item farther away from your face and wait for your child to look between the object and you. Again, then provide that object or item to your child. And then lastly, just do this again naturalistically throughout the day. Require that your child looks between you and an object, or looks at you if you're engaging in an activity with them before providing that item to your child. Another just good reminder is to have choice boards available for your child. Even if your child can make some requests, they might not be able to generate ideas of what they want on their own, or might get stuck in patterns of asking for the same things and become frustrated when they can't really ask for what it is that they want. Another great time to use a choice board is when your child is waiting. When we're waiting, we typically hop on our phones to distract ourselves, and so giving your child a choice board of activities they can do while they wait for things helps our children be more successful. And then kind of as you're thinking about the choice boards you're providing for your child, think about, do you need to use real pictures? Are symbols or things from the internet okay? And then how many choices are you giving? So some of our students, maybe 2 choices is plenty, where other students, our children can, scan 10 choices. So you guys know your child well, and just kind of take some time to think about how they can be most successful with their choice boards. So this is probably a big question for a lot of you whose children have access as a function of their behavior, which is fading, honoring their request. And this is such an important step for students who do have access as a function of behavior. So once a student is asking for items and actions fluently, we do fade back on how often we honor that request. And so right now, while you guys are at home, this is probably really hard to do by yourselves. At school, we're working on hearing no or wait or not right now. We're working on this all the time at school. So if your behavior specialist or in-home team does not currently have a plan in place for your child to tolerate hearing no, my suggestion right now would be to keep on teaching your child to ask for what they want in more appropriate ways and increasing the communication expectation. So for example, if your child masters leading you to an item that they want, then maybe we teach them to start pointing to it. And after they're pointing to it, and they master that, it's a requirement that they use their talker to ask for it. So keep upping those communication expectations. And you can always get in touch with a behavior specialist or a speech pathologist to help you if you're feeling stuck there. So, same as before, reinforce the things we want to see, such as pointing and guiding and joint attention and using talkers or words, and try not to reinforce any challenging behavior that your child is engaging in to try and get access to the things that they want. The last area we're going to talk about is communication interventions for automatic behaviors. And replacing automatic behaviors with communication is definitely a tricky area, but I'm going to give you a few ideas about some things you can do at home. For example, at level 2, you can engage in joint attention while your child's engaging in a repetitive or restricted behavior. So if your child is spinning an object or watching a specific video over and over again, you can kind of try to interject yourself and get some eye contact or joint attention going during those times. For level 3, that would just be maybe providing real pictures or objects of sensory choices. And then level 4, moving into picture symbols, manual sign, or spoken words for things that meet your child's sensory needs, such as alone, space, rest, body sock, squeezes, music, hurt, pain, sick, tired. Again, going back to our zones of regulation curriculum, which I'll provide a short explanation of in a different presentation, giving a choice board when your child is in the blue zone is a good idea. So the blue zone is kind of a low energy state, which might include things like sad, sleepy, sick, or hurt. And so just kind of showing them their options of different things that they can do when they're in that emotional state. If you know some sensory options that your child likes, just working on helping them request them. And so we used some visual supports here to help one of our students who loud noises is very aversive for him. And so he likes to have headphones. And so once he was able to ask for those headphones independently, we helped him expand to be able to say when he wanted to take them off or put them on, but this was only after he had mastered asking for the headphones. So again, just providing visual supports is always helpful. Another thing that you can work on at home for if you know that your child has behaviors related to pain or feeling sick and they're unable to tell you, you could try work on identifying and labeling body parts. And then in conjunction with that, if you know that your child's actually sick, they have a cough, fever, runny nose, or they're hurt, they have a scrape or a cut, point to that symptom and label the feeling. For example, you could say, you cut your finger, that hurt, your finger is hurt. And so really taking those times when we can visibly see that our students might be feeling sick or hurt and pointing them out to give them that language. So, same as before, reinforce the things we want to see and try not to reinforce the things we don't want to see. So a big thing to remember is that it's going to be really hard to teach these skills in a time when your child's already frustrated. So if you have the time, take a few minutes throughout your day to practice communication targets at a time when your child is regulated and happy. And this will help your child learn the skill and be able to use it in a time when they may be frustrated. So for example, you want to teach a communication mode for escape. And so what you're teaching is gently pushing your arm when your child wants you to go away. And so to reinforce that, to teach it, get out of the room. And then if you're teaching it in a time when your child might not actually want you out of the room, but you're just getting your practice in, you can add in some extra reinforcement by being silly or giving your child a small edible for using the new communication mode and just showing them that that's something that you want them to do. If you are working on a communication mode for attention, and what you're teaching is for your child to use a recordable button that says, "Look at me," or something along those lines. One way you could start teaching it is when you're in the same room as your child, have them press that recordable button and give them their favorite kind of attention. So you know that your child really loves tickles, and so when they hit that button, you're giving them lots and lots of tickles and high magnitude attention. If you are working on a communication mode for access, and say you want to teach your child to go to the fridge and hit the eat symbol or bring you that eat symbol, maybe you start by teaching it by each time you sit at the fridge with your child and have them touch the picture, without screaming or engaging in a challenging behavior, and then you're opening the refrigerator and giving them a small piece of food, and just building some fluency with showing them that this is going to get them what they want. Again, sorry, all these are numbered number 1, but just want to talk about increasing expectations over time. So it's okay, and actually it's really great if your child is successfully escaping the things they don't want to do and getting the things they want without engaging in challenging behavior, because this is really what we want to see. And at first, we're going to honor every request we can. Obviously, our kids can't have everything they want all the time, and sometimes we have to say no, but as we're teaching new communication modes, we really want to try and honor every request. And this might mean that your child gets exactly what they want for a while, and that is great, as long as they're not engaging in those challenging behaviors to get it. So the more times you practice in the day, the easier it will be for your child. So the hope is that eventually the appropriate communication will be just as easy and definitely more effective than the challenging behavior they were engaging in originally. Once your child is effectively getting their needs met without engaging in a challenging behavior, and that means across mom, dad, siblings, all the rooms in your house, that's when you can increase your expectations. And so when you think, oh, my child's really pointing to everything, they've kind of mastered this skill, they're using it with everyone in all rooms of the house, go ahead and talk to your SLP or behavior specialist about increasing expectations if you feel like your child and your family are ready to do so. Finally, if you have questions or comments, if you're interested in materials that you think would help make your child more successful at home, please feel free to reach out. You can reach out to me if you're in one of my classrooms, or Rena if you're in one of her classrooms. And yeah, I hope you guys got something out of this presentation and are able to take a new communication mode and use it at home with your child. Thanks, guys.